information and different type of learnings to the from the various specialties to the entire medical fraternity. On today's auspicious day, we have kept this webinar with two the eminent faculties and the different subjects. Now let me introduce the first faculty. He is Dr. Bankim Modi. He passed his MBBS from BJMC Ahmedabad in 1989. He did his MS General Surgery from BJMC Ahmedabad in 1993. He is practicing since 1997 at Kukarwada at Gandhinagar. He is assistant associate professor in surgery department at Goenka Dental College. He has presented many scientific papers on rabies in national conference. He has conducted the CME on rabies awareness and also the TOT program of the government of Gujarat. Today, his topic is watershed moment in rabies post-exposure prophylaxis. So, with this little introduction, I welcome Dr. Bankim Modi and request him to start his presentation. Dr. Bankim Modi, please.
Thank you, sir, for so nice word of introduction, and thank you all the colleagues. Today, my also greeting to all the medical fraternity on the auspicious occasion of the National Doctors Day. Now, dawn of the new era in the rabies post-exposure prophylaxis. Dawn means the good beginning of the day. So, for the rabies post-exposure prophylaxis, dawn of the new era will be the twin rab. Now we will introduction about the disease today, rabies. Rabies is a 100% fatal viral encephalomyelitis caused by the Lissa virus 2 types of the Rhabdoviridae family. There is one proverb for any disease: prevention is better than cure. But for the rabies, prevention is the only cure. If the patient of rabies is saved, the diagnosis must be wrong. Till date in the literature, there are only 5 to 7 patients have been survived from the attack of the rabies. So it is called the 100% fatal disease. And 99% of the cases of rabies occurs due to bite of the most probably caused by the dogs and the cats. According to multicentric survey done by APCRI and WHO in 2009, globally 60,000 deaths occurs due to rabies. Among that, more than one-third part, that is the 20,000 of death occurs in the India. That is the question and subject of the very. And globally, around 6 million people have to undergo the post-exposure treatment following rabies dog bite or any animal bite. In India, around 17.4 million animal bite cases occurring every year. Means every 30 seconds one person is bitten by the animal, and 50 to 30,000 deaths occurs due to rabies and rabies related disease in the India. After bite of animal, whether it may be provoked or unprovoked, to the muscles and surrounding connective tissue, where after getting unfavorable in the wound from viruses are multiply in the wound, and after getting favorable atmosphere, viruses multiply in the wound and they having neurotropic affinity. So they will get entry into the exoplasm of the peripheral nerves. From the peripheral nerves, virus will move toward the central nervous system with 1 millimeter per hour. So when the dog bite wound is situated distally, period for rabies occurrence will be more, And if the virus is situated near the head and neck or central nervous system, period for the rabies development will be less. So incubation period will be more. So wound situated on the part of the head and the face, there is more chances of development because the shorter the incubation period. After getting the central nervous system, viruses multiply into the brain. Till the virus reaches at the central nervous system, virus is not exposed to any blood. There is no primary or secondary viremia. So there is no acquired immunity developed to the rabies. From the vein, viruses are conducted to the nerve salivary gland via nerve to the salivary gland. Then virus is shed into the salivary gland. So at that time, human or any animal becomes infected. And after the contaminated saliva will produce rabies. When the viruses are settled in the brain, typical smear of the brain, that is you can see the presence of Negri body. That is the feature of the development of rabies. Signs and symptoms usually occurs after the incubation period. Incubation period of rabies varies in 75% cases from 3 weeks to 3 months period. And after that, generally signs and symptoms of rabies are like viral fever, headache, malaise, fever, fatigue, body ache, muscle spasm. And typical features of the development of rabies, that is the tingling and numbness or twitching sensation around the animal bite wound. And another symptoms are the irritability, agitation, nervousness, aggressiveness, convulsion, confusion, bizarre behavior, weakness, motor paralysis, excessive production of saliva, and that is called the drooling, excessive tearing, watering from the eye, and all. Following that a classical triad of the rabies, that is the hydrophobia, photophobia, and aerophobia. Hydrophobia means fear of the water due to spasms of the pharyngeal and laryngeal muscles. Patient will move, resist to drinking the water. So even drought of the air or the light will provoke the agitation and convulsion. That is called the hydrophobia, photophobia, and aerophobia. And another associated symptoms are the diplopia, double vision, associated with the spasm or paralysis of the facial muscle. That is also called the ophthalmoplegia or various other symptoms. And ultimately, patient will die due to cardiorespiratory muscle paralysis. For the treatment of rabies, have been prophylaxis, post-exposure prophylaxis, and treatment after the re-exposure. Pre-exposure prophylaxis have been considered for the person who are more prone to exposure the animal, like farmer, cattle rearing business, wildlife officer, veterinary officer, quarantine officer, laboratory staff personnel who are occupied with the scientist work or research work of the laboratory material, animal handler, zoo persons, they are more prone to develop the rabies and exposure to the rabies virus. So for the preventive aspect, they are supposed to take the vaccine at the schedule of 0.1 ml at the day 07 and either 21 or 28 days. 3 doses of anti-rabies vaccine is recommended for the pre-exposure prophylaxis. Now, second part is the post-exposure prophylaxis for the treatment protocol of the following any animal bite. So for that, if person is suffering from animal bite, first and foremost advise wound toilet. Before any going any heroic work, tell the patient to wound wash. First, he advised to wash the wound under running water or tap water for 2 to 3 minutes so that mechanically viruses are removed from the wound. So that is the first step. After that, wound should be toileted with the Savlon, soap, Dettol or any antiseptic solution. Rabies viruses are bullet shaped. Above that, they are having lipoprotein envelope. We washing with the soap, saponification process will rupture the lipoprotein envelope and inactivate the rabies virus. So that is the more important. Certain time patient having major wound. So patients are insisting for suturing of the wound, but always discourage the patient. Never suture the large wound. Then and then it should be sutured loosely to close the wound. Don't suture the wound tightly. And wound suturing can be only done after infiltration of the rabies immunoglobulin in the wound. And sterile dressing should be kept. Exposure of the wound under the sunlight, ultraviolet rays in the sunlight also destroy the rabies virus. For the post-exposure prophylaxis in the Geneva Convention in 2009, rabies wound, any animal wound have been classified into three categories. Category wound, touching or feeding of the animal, or contact of licks or contact of saliva on the intact skin. For that, there is no treatment guideline, no treatment required, only washing of the wound contaminated area of the skin. For the category 2, nibbling of uncovered skin or minor scratches or abrasion without bleeding, that is called the category 2. For the category 2, only rabies vaccine is advised. There is no need of rabies immunoglobulin. Category 3 wound are the single and or multiple transdermal bites or scratching with bleeding, or contact of saliva means leaks on the broken skin, or contact of saliva or contamination of saliva mucous membrane with the saliva means exposure of the saliva to the cornea, to the nasal mucosa, or to the oral cavity, or exposure to the rabbit bite, that is considered as a category 3 bite. For that, three gold standard rules: wound toilet, immediate vaccines that by the active immunity, and rabies immunoglobulin into the locally into the wound, that is the passive immunity. Active immunization can be done by the presently available vaccines in the market, that are the cell cultures or embryonated egg-based vaccine. These are the all the vaccines are equally effective and same dose for the all the age from pediatric to the geriatrics. So patient is advised to take the complete dose of the vaccination. There are 5 dose regimen that is called the SN protocol: 0, 3, 7, 14 and 28 dose. Always give the vaccine on the deltoid region. If you are giving vaccine on the gluteal region, there is abundance of fat that will destroy the vaccination. And there is also another types of the dose regimen, that is the 4 dose regimen. On the day 0, there are 2 dose of the vaccine should be given onto the each deltoid region, and on the 7 and 21 days, second, third and fourth dose is given. There is another regimen in intradermal that is applied for the government and major hospital. Government sectors are giving this intradermal regimen, 2 site, 0.1 ml dose of 2 site on the both deltoid region on 0, 3, 7 and 28 days. That is regarding the active immunization. For the category 3, in our day-to-day practice, more than 70 to 90% wounds are the considering as the category 3. For that, along with the active immunization on the day 0, passive immunization is essential. Nowadays, passive immunization can be done by the rabies immunoglobulin for the category 3, that is the human rabies equine immunoglobulin and the human rabies immunoglobulin and equine rabies immunoglobulin. Dosage of the HRIG is the 20 international unit per kg body weight, and dosage of the ERIG is the 40 international unit per kg body weight. Passive immunization should be started immediately on the day 0 along with the vaccine. But somehow when the patient comes delayed, you can give the passive vaccination up to the day 07, day 7. After day 7, there is no need of the passive immunoglobulin application, because after the day 7, there is gradually development of the active immunity by the vaccine. Full dose of rabies immunoglobulin should be infiltrated into and around the wound after negative test dose, 0.1 into 10 dilution of the negative test dose. If the wound is small and required amount of RIG is larger, then remaining amount of the rig should be given on the opposite deltoid region. If the wounds are multiple and the rig amount is small, then it can be diluted with the normal saline, and that should be given into the in and around the wound. After rabies in immunoglobulin infiltration, if necessity requires the suturing, then you can suture the wound after application. Now our topic has been started. Rabies immunoglobulin E-rig and H-rig. H-rig is quite costlier and difficult for the procurement, and there is also chances of transmission of the human related disease like HIV or another type of the infection. And for the E-rig, there is also chances risk of the zoonotic infection, and also production have been discontinued due to animal protection because it is developed from the horse pulled serum. And another limitation of the H-rig and E-rig are the cost. Procurement is difficult, and these are the necessity of the development of another source, that is the unmet need or requirement of the anti-rabies monoclonal antibodies. Before that, we have to learn the structure of the rabies virus. Rabies virus are the RNA virus of the rabidoviral family, bullet-shaped virus. For the antigenicity or peculiarity of the rabies virus, there are three types of the protein. One is the matrix protein, one is the N protein. N protein is for the antigenicity, and G protein, that is glycoprotein on the surface of the rabies virus. In the picture you can see the bluish color. G protein or glycoprotein, that is for the virus neutralizing antibody. Antibody will be anchored to that. That is the mechanism of the prevention of the rabies or inactivation of the rabies with the help of the immunoglobulin. So that is the basic mechanism. On the G protein or glycoprotein rabies virus, there are four types of the surface antigen: type 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. During the decades, from the various murines or mouse origin, monoclonal antibodies have been tried for the development for rabies virus neutralizing G protein or G antibody for the treatment of various rabies and various another Lissa virus, two types of rabies prevention. In vitro and vivo studies are undergoing. From according to that, specific antibody against the rabies virus G, antigenic site 1, 2, 3, 4 and minor sites, that are the vast majority for the development of the cocktail of monoclonal antibody. There are various antigenic sites. So for definitive prevention of rabies, there is requirement of combination of various two types of monoclonal antibody. So that is called the cocktail of monoclonal antibody. Antigenic site 2 is discontinuous and confirmation dependent, whereas antigenic site 3 is the continuous and confirmation dependent. There is no single monoclonal antibody that can cope up or prevent the rabies virus perfectly. So there is necessity of combining monoclonal antibody for neutralizing various rabies and rabies related virus in the in vivo and in vitro study. So cocktail of mouse monoclonal antibody have been investigated and studied, and for that post-exposure treatment for the alternative of H-rig monoclonal antibody, that is the dawn of the new era of the immunoglobulin against the twin rab. Twin rabs means there is combination of the two types of the monoclonal antibody that have been innovated and developed by the Zydus Healthcare of our India. Now our Prime Minister has also been given the whip, local for the vocal. So that is the matter of pride for our Indian community, that our Indian healthcare development, Cadila Healthcare, had developed twin rab that will also serve all over India and also various countries globally. So that is the matter of pride for us. Cocktail of two rabies monoclonal antibody, that is combination of the two monoclonal antibody, that is docaravimab and Miromavir. These are the two monoclonal antibody differentially produced from the different genetic hybridoma, and that is indicated for the treatment of individuals who have exposed to the rabies virus following dog bite. Mechanism of action of the twin rab. Twin rab is a unique combination of the two monoclonal antibody, that is the docaramib and miromavir, binds at the two different sites of the G proteins on the surface of rabies virus, that is the site 1, 2 and 3. Docaramib IgG2B that specifically binds on the sites 1 and 3 on the G protein of the rabies virus envelope, and miromavir, that is IgG1 isotype, specifically binds on the site 2 of the G protein on the surface of the rabies virus. So when combining two different type of monoclonal antibody, they will bind and neutralize all the both. Therefore, they are having major role for the prevention of the infection into the neighboring cell of the body. Unique features 2. Binding of the twin rib at the two distinct antigenic site and protects against the even mutated rabies virus also, and breadth of the rabies virus neutralization also. Extensive in vitro and vivo studies have been undergone and they have successfully conducted in the WHO collaborating centers of the Renowned Institute of India, NIMHAS Bangalore, National Institute of Virology at Pune, and they have successfully conducted all the trials and they have given the permission. Monoclonal antibody have been tested for the virustic and even wildlife animals, rabies animal also. So they have been also developed against the domestic and pet and wildlife animal also. It is also formulated containing equipotent mixture of each antibody, which is determined by using of the anti-sera standard undertaking the virus neutralizing antibody standard also. It is highly purified. There is no excessive or extra protein content, so there is no chance of adverse reaction. Even not necessary of prior to test dose also. Much less protein and less dose, so there is lower risk of the hypersensitivity reaction that can be produced on the scalable quantity. Large quantity also can be produced. So there is no shortage of the vaccine at the domestic as well as international level. Equipotent combination of the docaramib and miromavir was also found to efficacious on the hamsters challenged with the lethal dose of rabies virus. So in vivo and in vitro studies have been carried out. Twin rab in conjunction with the vaccine found to be highly effective on the hamster challenged to the lethal virus. So that these are the tests regarding the efficiency and proven satisfactory result of the twin rab. The twin rab was found to be equipotent in both E-rig and H-rig in the mice challenged with the lethal dose of the different street isolates also. Clinical data. For before going to the market, various clinical data and various researches have been done. Twin rab was found to be safe, well tolerated, and administered as a single intramuscular dose or in the dose of 40 international unit per kg weight on the healthy subject, as well as 4 dose of 40 international unit per kg in active immunity. Pharmacokinetic evaluation indicated for the active drug is well absorbed and on the intramuscular administration in the healthy subject in the dose related with the rabies virus neutralizing antibody. And Vaxirab N was not significantly neutralized by the, so there is no counter effect along with the rabies vaccine and rabies immunoglobulin, that is the twin rab. that has been given permission by US FDA approval, revised orphan designation for US FDA, tested for the neutralization of various species, also developed in the collaboration of the WHO Collaborating Center, standard quality and greater effective norms, also have been of the zoonotic infection. There is no chances of less adverse effect or untoward reaction like anaphylaxis. So TwinRab is the globally accepted, safe, and minimum there are no chances of adverse reaction or anaphylactic reaction. Available formulation, it is available in the pack of the 10 ml, 5 ml, 2.5 ml and 1 ml containing vial. 2.5 ml containing 1500 international unit per vial, means 600 international unit per ml is available in the market pack, and 1 ml vial containing the 600 international unit. So 1 vial, 1 ml of 1 vial is sufficient for the 15 kg weight individual, because dose is the 40 international unit per kg weight. Suppose 2.5 vial ml vial that is containing 1500 international unit. So 40 into 40. So that may be sufficient for person having weight is 40 kilogram. If patient weight is more than 40 kg, round about 65 or 80 kg, then 2.5 ml dose vial, 2 dose vial requirement, or you can give the 5 ml vial for the full treatment of the 80 kg body weight person. Product composition, each vial containing the 2 vaccine 150 potency IU unit of Docaravimab and Miromavir. And for the inactive ingredient, the trisodium citrate, citric acid, sodium chloride and polysorbate. These are for the preservative purpose. So key takeaway message, rabies is a 100% fatal disease. There is no alternate or second alternate. We can never give that second inning. So we have to give the treatment for the short treatment. If in our clinical day-to-day practice, more than 70 to 80% patients are category 3 bite. So gold standard treatment is the wound toilet, tetanus prophylaxis on the day 0, rabies vaccine, 5 doses of the rabies vaccine, and on the day 0, rabies immunoglobulin. You can advise the TwinRab. So post-exposure prophylaxis consists the wound toilet, administration of the vaccine, and immunoglobulin. TwinRab is the novel cocktail of the two types of the monoclonal antibody that is safe and effective, and recommended dose of the TwinRab is the 40 international unit per kg body weight. In my today's talk, I have tried to cover all the aspects, basic aspects of the rabies, preventive aspects, and regarding the product category 3 bite. In our setup or in surrounding, nowadays government is providing rabies vaccine free of cost. So our friends and from the all the government CHC, people are referring category 3 bites to us, and we are interested to treat the category 3 bites. Being a surgeon, all the trauma patients are coming to us, and we are trying our best. Thank you, Zydus Group and management, for giving me the opportunity and conveying my message for the prevention of rabies on the auspicious occasion of the National Doctors Day. And thank you all my colleagues for accompanying me for presentation. Thank you very much. Any question and answer that can be most welcome.
We don't have any live questions as of now, so Dr. Niti can say something and conclude this.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving a wonderful talk and taking us through the entire developmental journey of TwinRab. It has been a wonderful session and has clarified most of the doubt. With We thank you also for taking time out for attending this session on this auspicious day of National Doctors Day. I request all of you to the best of your health and request all of you to keep your vaccination status updated and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Miti. Now we will shift to our second lecture. Dr. Chirag Amin will be our speaker. Dr. Chirag Amin, he is a consultant high-risk pregnancy unit at Sterling Hospital. He's ex-honorary endoscopist and gynecologist at VS Hospital. He's private practice since 25 years at Means Hospital. His areas of interest are endoscopic surgery, live 3D and 4D sonography and color Doppler, infertility, and yes, more than that, economics and medicine. On behalf of all of us, I welcome Dr. Chirag Amin with respect of his topic on economics in medical field, pre and post corona, what will change? Dr. Chirag Amin.
Thank you, sir, for the kind words. I want to tell everybody for happy Doctors Day today, and thank you for inviting me for such a topic, which is actually after the corona tragedy has become a hot topic right now, because what is our future and how the things are shaping up is very interesting. There are lots of points which are very intricate. I would like to go at least superficially so that it at least stimulates the mind and triggers our mind to at least think what is going on, and let us be flexible. Right now, it is said that the person who is resilient as well as flexible in changing would be the person who will ultimately win out. So the same practice cannot go on whatever the way we were doing. And what about our future also, next generation kids? So let us discuss about this. What happened to our smoothly running practice suddenly? We were enjoying our practice, everything was going like clockwork, and then suddenly changes have occurred because of corona. Today, there are many apprehensions in doctor's mind. Will my practice be the same again? Will I get adequate remuneration for my hard work and investment? A lot of people have invested in their nursing homes, and then now suddenly the workload has reduced. What changes are expected in the setup at my hospital in this era of COVID-19? Will I be able to avoid getting infected with coronavirus during my practice? What will happen to my practice if I get infected? This is one of the important burning questions. What expenses are expected if I get infection? Medico-legal aspects if patient gets infection from the hospital. What changes are expected in social life? And is telemedicine feasible in India? And should I send my kids to the same profession? So first and foremost principle is to protect yourself first. Politicians and government will not protect you. Everything started with a very high tone, and government was considering that they will be able to curtail the spread of corona, but they could not. And then there was a stage when they left out, and then just they told that you just go back to work, and government is trying their best, but you help yourself. So the word Atmanirbhar came. Consider the doctor's risk in corona. There is very difficult situation where you have to wear PPE kit. Even in OPD, you have to wear respirator or N95 mask. And this is what wearing a mask will do to your body. There is continuous accumulation of carbon dioxide. And this continuous accumulation leads to toxicity, headache, dizziness, confusion. And this is for long time. For example, 4 hours, 5 hours, you are into it. Our young generation who are really corona warriors and fighting in corona wards, they have to wear the PPE kit for 8 hours at a stretch, where they cannot drink water, they cannot go to toilet, so dehydration also sets in. And this is a very pathetic situation, and you don't know the end. When it will end is not sure. Keep in mind that army is really lucky. We are very proud of our army, but army is at least lucky. They can see their enemy. doctor is fighting an unseen enemy. And your protection is not easy, not comfortable, or not even cheap. So let us discuss the basic medical economics. There are a lot of things have changed. People mindset has still not changed. They will think that the cost will remain the same. The treatment part remains the same. It is not like that. Now the scenario has changed, and maybe changed for better for doctors also sometimes. But let us discuss what are the changes going to come. Medical economics is a topic which has not been discussed much, but it is very, very important. We need to keep our practice healthy. If you take all the worries home, if you take the problems home, then you are not a happy guy. So let us see why doctors are likely to end up in a financial trouble near the end of their career. Let's understand few basic fundamentals used in economics. I will not go into detailed jargons, but some basic fundamentals have to be understood. One is very important parameter is called price parity. The price parity means that the selling price of a product or produce, here it is a healthcare service, should go up in the same amount as the price of the inputs used in its production go up. So if your costing is going up, your price should go up. This requires constant vigilance on what is happening in the market. The easiest way is to directly link the price increase with the inflation rate. The cost of treatment has to increase simultaneously with the increase in other prices in the market. If it is not increased, what will happen? For some time, you will be able to sustain itself, but its detrimental effects will be seen in the quality sooner or later. So ultimately, the quality suffering will occur, and you will start seeing the results on your practice. So price parity has to be kept in mind, and accordingly, the price has to slowly increase, which doesn't happen in our practice normally, because the doctors go on practicing and said they don't realize that, oh, the petrol price were 50 rupees, now they are 80 rupees, but their consultation remains the same. Now with this kind of situation, you cannot last long. Ultimately, you cannot upgrade yourself and your quality will suffer. Second important jargon is EBITDA margin. It is the earning before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Now, what are these important parameters? We should understand this. This EBITDA margin gives you a broad perspective of your sector, how the sector is performing. The doctors are very slowly affected by these parameters, because until now, there was a golden era of small nursing homes and private practitioners, because we had a very high EBITDA margin. The income which we generated was almost our profit, and the sale and the expense part was very less until now. Now that scenario has changed, and that is why this discussion has ended up that what is the EBITDA margin. The doctors are affected very slowly by increasing values of interest. So suppose you earn a X amount, that is the standard income. Now once you remove the expenses, then the amount which remains is your EBITDA. From this is the earning which occurs before you are deducting interest. Suppose you are having a loan, bank loan, then you have to pay interest to that. Then you have to pay taxes on your profit. Then there is a depreciation. Now depreciation, we all know, is the depreciation is the amount which you lose every year on equipment or tangible assets. That means your hospital, nursing home, your car, they all get depreciated over a period of time. But the most important thing which we miss is called amortization. Now amortization is actually it is a part of depreciation only, but it is on intangible assets. For example, our practice is for, say, any average person will practice for 30 to 35 years in his life. If he practices for 35 years, in the first year of practice, he has 29 years left, 30 years, then he has 29 years left for practice. But if you consider his practice after 25 years, he has only 5 years left. So every year he is reducing his capacity of practice, and this is a intangible depreciation called amortization. So you are amortizing your skill slowly. This profit which remains after the EBITDA has reduced over a period of time without the realization by the healthcare professional. They don't realize that you are losing that amount. As practice shifted to the next generation level, it started depending more and more on electronic gadgets, equipments which are costly. For example, ultrasound, other equipment, echocardiography. So this leads to more loan taking. So when you have invested in equipment, you are taking more loans. So there is increased interest. In EBITDA, interest will be deducted later on. Then there is higher tax regime for professionals nowadays. We are paying about 35% of tax, and we are in the upper bracket. So now even super rich tax will be applicable to many. Then there is high depreciation rate due to electronic items. All the electronic items get depreciated early. And there is high amortization as the professional lifespan is reduced. This is for the next generation particularly, because when we passed out after specializing, we were about 26, 27 years of age. Nowadays, you can very quickly connect yourself that any general surgeon wants to practice, he will have to have a super specialty. So he goes for another study. So until the person comes for practicing, he will be of the age of 30, 32, 34 years. So his professional career becomes lesser. So this is called higher amortization. Her total practicing years, his total practicing years will over a period of time reduce. One major problem with Indian doctors running small nursing homes by themselves is that they have no understanding of inflation and cost of upgradation. So what should be the ideal pricing they need to charge is not clear in their minds. So over a period of time, before they realize, their quality starts going downhill as they cannot upgrade. Further growth from profits have reduced over time. So previously what happened, that whatever you would earn, you would try to put somewhere for further benefit on a long term. So usually whatever is earned by a doctor is invested in either fixed deposit in bank or a PPF account where interest rates have gone down. If you see in the last few years, the government has a tendency to reduce the interest rates. So right now, mostly the interest rates are very low, around 5 to 6% in bank also, which cannot fight inflation. Even if he invests in shares, the dividends have become taxable now. So return from secure investments are now far below the inflation rate. So in last few years, investment opportunities have reduced and investments have eroded over a period of time. So doctor's dilemma is that before they realize, when they are reaching the end of their career, doctor finds themselves in a financially unstable situation. One respite is that due to the seniority, over a period of years, they get seniority. They continue to have steady flow of patients and go on earning, but they cannot dream of a happy retirement in India. Like doctors in USA, there is no social security in India, unlike in USA. Whatever tax you are paying goes to drain. It is not going to return back to you over a period of time as in the form of social security, which happens in USA. They have to manage their retirement life purely on what they have earned in their professional lifespan. They have to continue working even when their health does not permit. So you find only in India that aged doctors who are really actually have to retire and relax in their life, they are working. This affects the lifespan also. This was an interesting study conducted by Indian Medical Association themselves, that what is the average lifespan of a doctor in India. This overwork by doctor comes at a price. They sacrifice their personal life and health for years, and data shows that the life expectancy of average Indian is 67.9 years, whereas of a doctor it is 59 years, which is shocking. It was noticed that most early deaths occurred due to cardiac arrest and early malignancies. So what is the future of corona pandemic? What will happen in future? One thing is certain, that corona pandemic is going to stay for a while. Because we have seen that yesterday we had America opened up certain of its states and we found that there was 44,000 new cases per day. So there is sudden jump of increase in cases. The same is happening in India. So second wave of corona pandemic is going to come. We have to learn to live with it. World will have to stabilize to a new normal. There will be a drastic change in human behavior, social structure, lifestyle, economy, attitude towards health, etc. Preventive medicine and healthcare, which was neglected till now, will actually become more of a priority. So economics post-COVID, now the practice will stabilize to a new level. A clinic which was examining 40 patients in one OPD will now be able to examine only 15 to 20 patients. Because now social distancing has to be kept, appointments have to be given. So there is a limitation. Now you have to wear PPE kits. So you cannot go on working for the whole day. So that is why there will be restrictions. There will be no OPD for minor complaints. So previously patients used to come for minor complaints also. Now most of them will talk on phone and WhatsApp and expect treatment by so-called telemedicine. In USA, it is a chargeable thing, but in India, it is expected to be free of cost. People are actually not ready to pay for telemedicine. So it is your waste of time, will invade on your private time, increase your medical legal liability, and yet will not pay you. Now consider the economic implication. If you earn, I'll just put a simple example. If somebody's consulting is 500 rupees from one patient and you are saying OPD of 40 patients, your collection would be 20,000 rupees. Now, if you see 15 patients at the same time, your collection would be 7,500. So see the impact. It will become 1/3. If you just want to maintain your collection, either you will have to charge more than 1,300 rupees per patient. Is it possible? It is not possible at present. So this is going to impact our collection. Most vulnerable group, most affected group is general practitioners, as they see a large number of patients in OPD. There is crowding in the OPD, appointments are difficult to manage, consultation rooms are small and not well ventilated, and revenue is lesser. So they are at the highest of risk, even for COVID infection. In specialist group, anesthesiologist, ENT specialist, ophthalmologist, and dentist are into the high risk group. Moreover, those into the lifestyle non-emergency practices like dermatologists and plastic surgeons have greatly reduced inflow of patients. The expenses are going to increase. So consider the increase of expense even for lesser number of patients. Cost of an extra staff at the clinic's entrance for thermal scan. All staff starting from watchman to the receptionist to the nurses will have to be given proper N95 mask, gloves and face shield, and in all the shifts where they are working. Cost of sanitizers, disinfectants and masks will be continuously increasing. All surgeries will require testing to the patient and preparation like filters and PPE, which is adding to the cost. Additional insurance coverage for the staff. If doctor falls ill due to corona, cost of hospitalization, loss of work hours, risk to family members, and stigma. All these are creating havoc at this stage. There will be continuous threat of possibility of infection to doctors and staff members. Staff will also not be ready to work with meager salaries they are getting at present. As the nursing staffs are already underpaid in India, to get quality nursing staff will be difficult, and many of them will start shifting to other fields of work. As most doctors have singleton practice, most nursing home will go into shutdown mode in case the doctor gets infected. A big issue which needs a separate discussion is violence on doctors. Indian Medical Association confirms that over 75% of doctors in India have faced some form of violence at patient's hand. Adding to this was increasing medical legal threat, due to which defensive practice started. So for the same given time and lesser patients, income has decreased, expenses and risk have increased. Thus, profit in healthcare is drastically eroded. Adding to the trouble is the fact that as the economy has gone down and will not revive in near future, charges cannot be increased at present without unity. So we don't expect that the GDP will again go up quickly. So 1 or 2 years are very bad, and patients themselves would not be able to pay properly. So it's difficult to increase charges. So what is the answer to this? What changes are required post-COVID urgently? All physicians get united and uniformly increase the price of consultation to a new price parity value. The price parity value has to be considered after keeping in mind the expenses which have increased, the staff requirements, and the amount of patients which have reduced. Keep your consulting fees according to the time given and resources used. Reduce free consultations. Lot of relatives and long distance relatives, they all expect that you do free consultations, but it is not feasible. Examine patients with prior appointment only. Let patients realize the importance and value of consultation. Don't bend to unnecessary expectation of patients. Never comment on our colleagues. Image of doctors have already enough eroded in general public. Spare 5 minutes of consulting time for educating patients about personal care during COVID pandemic, which will go in a long way. If your patients are healthy, ultimately it will be reflected in your practice. This is a golden opportunity for us to train our patients for better etiquette in doctors' chambers. So what are the patients' etiquettes they should keep in mind? They should be on time for appointment. By any chance, they come early, sit in the comfort of the car, but don't come into the nursing home and increase the crowding. If there is difficulty in coming due to police barricade in lockdown, please be polite to them. They are doing their job. Give them reason for hospital visit. If difficulty arises, you can ask them to call the hospital for confirmation. At entrance, the security will take your temperature with thermometer. Give sanitizer for your hands. Keep physical distancing from other patients. Remember, you are entering a public place. Avoid taking mobile phone with you. It is difficult to sanitize a mobile. Don't crowd the reception area. Go to reception one by one. Please don't touch or handle others' patients' file. Virus remains on surface for significant duration. And liberal use of sanitizer. The etiquette in the doctor's chamber is very important. One important thing to remember is that for infection to happen, the viral load as well as contact time is very important. So reducing contact time will be a major safety measure. Always keep in mind that hospital is a public place, and so it is a high risk area for all. Keep questions in your mind handy and precise. Change the concept that more time the doctor passes with you, it is a good doctor. Your doctor is a professional and responsible person. He will give time according to the requirement of your case. Avoid touching door handles, knob, table and other items. Don't go on asking the same questions repeatedly. Avoid socializing with your doctor. Consider the doctor's perspective. Most of the senior doctors are above 50 years, so near high risk group. Doctors are highly likely to get infected, so they work in rotation in a group. Patients should never insist on being examined by a specific doctor only. This habit we need to change over a period of time. When you are into a group practice, any doctor will see you. That is the concept, and we develop a protocol so that the same protocol is applicable by all the doctors. Please don't phone the doctor on personal number. Mobile is a source of infection, and with PPE kit on, it is not possible to answer. Patients should call on hospital number for any assistance. Doctors and staff have to wear PPE for a long time in operation theater and OPD. It is known that continuous use of N95 mask creates CO2 accumulation and headache. Patients have to be considerate to them and reduce questions to absolute necessary. At any given time in a nursing home, there are 10 to 15 staff members for whom PPE has to be arranged. Staff has to be rotated. So if a nursing home is there, it is ideal that 1/3 staff works at one time. So if one case is positive, work of nursing home does not suffer. Transport of staff is also difficult. Hospital protocol and system has to be robust. So what will happen in future to the nursing home? If we see nursing homes, we can divide it, hospitals, small nursing homes and private practices into two categories. One is a premium category. One is doctors who are catering to an economy class. So the premium category is where the charges are little higher, and rich class will take treatment there. So wherever they were taking previously, they will continue taking because they can afford it. So premium nursing homes will not have much of problem. Poor class patients are already taking healthcare from government hospitals, and they will continue to do so. And over a period of time, government has to now invest in healthcare sector. So for poor class, they will have better facilities over a period of time. Most affected will be the lower middle class. Already passing from economic turmoil, they will have to shift to government hospitals from private setups. So government hospitals will be definitely overloaded over a period of time in future. As far as hospitals are concerned, premium nursing homes will still survive and earn, but those catering to lower middle class will be severely impacted. So this we have to keep in mind. Consider what is the future for new doctors who are coming. There is a big lot coming, newcomers are there. For a newcomer, we have 4 different situations. It depends on 2 things: economic ability to invest and academic excellence. So first option is joining a government institute. This is for those who don't have ability to invest and are having average academic excellence. Join a corporate hospital. This is for those who don't have ability to invest but have excellent academic career, so they are asset to the corporate hospital. But in a corporate hospital, most of the time, they will be little bit exploited and their own development would be lesser. In about 2 options, number of placement is still limited and is getting saturated. So those who are into government institute, they will still remain until they retire. So that place is filled up. In the same way, in a corporate hospital, a team is already there. They will not shift to other place quickly. So newcomer will not have a place in a government institute or corporate hospital. Third option will be to have a small private setup for private practice. This was what happening till now. This was for those who can invest money and are academically good. But this part is now becoming difficult. New private practice is getting difficult. We'll go to that point later. Fourth option, which is there, is going out of the country. Is actually less viable for 1 or 2 years because even America is right now retarding the influx also. H-1B visa is reduced. But later on, definitely exodus will increase because unlike India, I am sure that USA and Europe will quickly understand the value of healthcare professionals and will reduce the blocks which prevent migration. They will get handsomely paid there. So exodus, we have seen that since many years when we were studying, since then, we know that half of our batch generally goes to other country, USA or Canada or somewhere. And this is again going to happen back because opportunity in our country will be lesser. Now, is it feasible to have a new establishment? So I was one day calculating that suppose some newcomer wants to invest and start a new hospital, what happens? So if Dr. X wants to start a gynec or surgical nursing home or a nursing home with ICU, for example, let us see the economics in that case. We will evaluate income and expenditure part. Average minimum requirement for space will be 4,000 square feet. This is barely minimum. If purchase, it will be approximately 1.25 crores. If it is a rental, approximately 1,60,000 per month is the rent. Cost of furniture, maintenance, setup, electricity bills, licenses. Now the licenses have increased. You need to take NABH and whatnots. You have to go for pollution control license, all kind of licenses. Property tax is now significant. These all will add up to about 4 lakh per month. So total expenditure, including rental, would be around 5.5 lakhs per month minimum. To generate this amount, if you compare the amount taken, the best way is to compare the amount which is taken by a senior consultant of the same branch in the same area. Wherever you want to practice, you just check out a senior consultant and check what is his cost for consultation and surgery. So Dr. X, if you calculate, will have to see minimum OPD of 20 patients and operate at least 10 surgeries per month to generate 20 patients per day OPD and 10 surgeries per month to at least go to bare minimum where your expenses are taken care of. He's not earning, but he's at least maintaining the nursing home. This is very difficult part. To get this immediately as soon as you sit in a new practice is very difficult. So problem is that the seniors still work at a lower charge. When a senior doctor doesn't increase his fee, how can a newcomer even think of doing so? In this situation, even a senior doctor has to go on working heavily at the cost of their health and family life till the end of his lifespan. So this is a grim scenario in India. So viability of a new nursing home individually run is a question mark right now. Then what is the answer to this? Something has to be done. The next generation has to do something. So the drastic metamorphosis of the private sector is needed. One thing is certain, that in future only group practice will survive. Small nursing homes will slowly reduce in number over a period of time. Hospital infrastructure will have everything under one roof. Now the patient will not like that for pathology, they have to go somewhere else. For X-ray, they have to go somewhere else. For CT scan, they have to go to other place and then come back to the doctor to show the reports. This system will slowly go away. The establishment has to be by group of doctors who hire management consultants to professionally manage the establishment. So this is actually reverse of the corporate hospital normally which are set up in India right now. Right now, a corporate will set up a hospital and they will manage and they will employ a group of doctors. There the say is not of doctors. So any decision of purchase or any practice decision has to be by management. And that is actually not ideal in healthcare, because sometimes in healthcare you have to take decisions which may be less profitable but for the benefit of the patients. So group of doctors, if they combine and do the practice and they hire management consultants, is a better approach. These kinds of establishments are already running successfully in USA since many years. They even have a large group of doctors, even up to 15 to 20, who own the establishment. In this kind of setups, doctors have to concentrate only on academic aspects, while day-to-day management is taken care by the management consultants who are actually hired by the doctors. There is an intricate mechanism and small issues which may come up, like sharing of profits, seniority, taking leave, duty structure, mechanism for joining of new members in the group, etc. This kind of model will have flexibility of either branch-specific center of excellence or a multi-speciality center of excellence. This kind of model will give ownership to the doctor with a regular growth and retirement safety at the end of his professional career, along with the independence of the work. So there are lots of smaller points in this aspect. If somebody is interested, we can discuss on a length on this. But this is the kind of structure which will come up in a near future and will be the successful structure in future. Now, little bit regarding the investment of the profits. We are earning money from the consulting and our practice. But if you don't invest in a proper way, again, it will go down to the drain. So the investments are broadly into 4 categories. One is, as you know, cash. Second is immovable properties like house, land, etc. Third is liquid assets like shares, mutual fund, fixed deposits, and fourth is gold. So how to categorize this? So the golden rule is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Asset allocation has to be according to your age. Here in our talk, we will see doctors who are of whole range, some junior doctors, some who have practice of 10, 15 years, some who are near their retirement, say 35 years of practice also. So we have to consider the 100 rule. The 100 rule simply states that you should take number 100 and subtract your age. The result should be the percentage of your portfolio that you should devote to equities like stocks. So if you are 25 years of age, these rules will suggest that you should invest 75% of your earned money in stocks. And if you are 75 years, you should invest only 25% in stocks. As you grow older, your asset allocation needs to move from equity to debt funds so that you go into safety over a period of time. This is very important. As you as you go near your retirement, you don't want to take risks. Even though the earning may be lesser, but the risk factor has to be calculated. But if you are a younger age, you can take more risk and earn more also. So that is why this 100 rule is very important. There are certain points just I would like to highlight. The cash should only be kept which is adequate to maintain the expenses for next 6 months. Don't sit on a pile of cash actually. Cash is not going to generate revenue. So cash is actually ultimately whatever cash you keep is waste. Actually the cash has to generate money. The money has to generate further money. The fixed deposit do not give adequate return to fight the inflation which is going on in our country at present. The inflation rate is much higher than what is projected by government, and the return has over a period of time reduced drastically. Right now the interest rates are very low, so fixed deposit are not ideal to be kept. Investment in share requires in-depth analysis of a company for its 4 parameters. Now, if you are interested and little bit learned about shares, then you need to see these 4 parameters. That is the book value or price to book ratio, that is called PB ratio, earning per share, EPS, then PE ratio and PEG ratio, that is calculated by taking PE ratio of a company and dividing it by year-over-year growth rate of its earning. Now, this is a separate talk in itself, and we can someday talk on it if somebody is interested. This is itself is a lecture of 1 hour, but unless you know this, don't invest blindly, because ultimately you will end up with trouble. Mutual funds are good option if one cannot remain constantly vigilant on his investments, but has to pay SIP, systematic investment plan, on a long term to get adequate return. SIP is actually very good method of investing, because even when the share market has overall gone down, that month you are investing, you are getting more units. Later on, when the price is up, your unit value is more, you may get less units in next month. So averaging occurs, and over a period of long term, you earn good amount. For this, you need to see the history of the fund which you are investing and the amount of expenses they are deducting. These 2 things are very important. And most of the time, go for index-based funds, so that which are much safer. Gold has already given a steady return on a long term and is a very liquid asset. You can liquidate anytime. So a part of your investment should go into gold, and property allocation should be restricted to 10 to 20%. On a long term, property gives good return, but requires a large amount to be invested in a short time. Difficult for doctors. The most of the time doctors have difficulty. Suppose they want to purchase a land and somebody says that it is costing 4 crore rupees. At a stretch, you don't have 4 crore rupees. You may be earning good, but you don't have immediate money. So what will you do? There are ways to manage this problem. So start investing in either smaller properties or into mutual fund share markets for short term. And as soon as you pile up a good chunk, you decide on a good property and take it. Overall, it is always advisable that minimum loan should be taken. Loan is ultimately your bank is earning, you are not earning. So avoid taking large amount of loan. And suppose you want to build a hospital or anything, serviceability of loan is very important. So if you are able to service the loan, that means you can at least pay the interest. Then on a long term, you are going to win. But if you cannot even pay the interest, then you are into trouble. So consider the serviceability of loan before taking a big loan. We would just go through some Warren Buffett's good quotes. If you aren't willing to own a stock for 10 years, don't even think about owning it for 10 minutes. So share investments, mutual fund investments are at least for more than 10 years. Don't go for short-term investments. They will not earn you more. The best chance to deploy capital is when the things are going down. So reverse trend you should keep in mind. When the market is actually running away, that is the right time to invest. You have noticed that when there was havoc as far as Corona was concerned, the stock market went phenomenally down. It was so down that if you had invested at that time, in many of the shares you have earned 3 times a day, 3 times your investment. So when everybody is running away, it is the right time to deploy your capital. Diversification is a protection against ignorance. So it is not that you should diversify to 15, 20, 30 different stocks. It is not ideal. It makes very little sense for those who know what they are doing. If you are ignorant, you try to protect yourself by diversifying the stocks. The one thing I will tell you is the worst investment you can have is, I told you, everybody's of thing. Cash is going to become worse, but good businesses are going to never. Risk comes, and people don't learn from history. Quotes, you can go through it. So some take-home messages are that fix up your long-term financial goal and stick to it. Always keep in mind duration of your practice. You cannot practice indefinitely. Consider long-term expenses, emergency situation, and have some contingency plan for it. Don't fall prey to false promises of short-term gain. Most of the time it is a pitfall. Many of the penny stocks give you promises that it is good, but it is not so. If you cannot handle it, it is better to take advice of a honest financial expert with a good track record. Don't depend on your kids to financially support you, because in this era, generally the kids will take much longer time to be independent themselves. Reduce your free consultations even for relatives. There is nothing free. Each patient you see will have a hidden cost on you. Keep healthcare as a profession. Don't get too much emotionally attached to it. We are covered under Consumer Protection Act. So patients are consumers and we are supplying them. So it is bilateral. So emotional attachment is not good. Many doctors have changed their professional when they had good opportunities. Keep your mind open for all professions according to your aptitude and ability. Distribute your time evenly so that your family doesn't suffer. Develop a hobby. It is a great stress buster. Take care of your health first. No patient is going to support you in your difficult times. But every cloud has a silver lining. So data says that after every pandemic in the history, there has been a V-shaped recovery in most sectors. So it is expected there will be a V-shaped recovery. Government and people in general will understand the importance of quality healthcare. There is strong possibility that our budgetary spending on healthcare will go up. Special incentives for healthcare may come. Public-private partnership in healthcare will increase. Importance of simple and healthy lifestyle, focus on improving general immunity, yoga, meditation, and preventive medicine will get priority. So this is our best chance to uplift the image of doctors in general public. So let us decide on that. And because Corona has given us some time to introspect, let us introspect our individual economic situation. Everybody has their own economic situation, and put a long-term goal that what you are going to do in future and what our next generation is going to do in future. I would expect any questions from your side would be welcome.
સાહેબ ક્વેશ્ચન તો નહીં, પણ મને એવું લાગે છે કે એક એવી ટીપ આના પરથી લેવી જોઈએ કે you should have good chartered accountant friends with you.
There
at
are
the time.
financial experts.
And today today incidentally is Chartered Accountants Day. So from the doctor side, let's wish all of them a happy Chartered Accountants Day. કારણ કે I think એને મને એવું લાગે છે કે મેડિકલ સ્કૂલમાં હવે એક ઇકોનોમિક્સ નો સબ્જેક્ટ એડ કરવાનો બહુ હાઈ ટાઈમ આવી ગયો છે. And doctor should be taught economics.
100%, because ultimately, even after we earn a lot, I have seen many people at the end of their career in a difficult situation. એ વખતે એમના છોકરા ભણવામાં આવે અને અત્યારે to teach their kids also is so costly nowadays.
The poor planning અને આખો વખત પ્રેક્ટિસમાં બિઝી રહેવાથી ઘણા બધા એસ્પેક્ટ્સ કદાચ મિસ થઈ રહ્યા છે એવું મને લાગે છે.
Exactly. So we have to look at all other aspects. You cannot leave economics.
Yes. Mehul, your take on this, please. Mehul.
Thank you, Dr. Chirag bhai. It was a very unique and excellent lecture and really good advice.
એક આજે કુંદનિકા કાપડિયાની એક વાત કહેવાનું મન થાય છે, એક પ્રાર્થના કહેવાનું મન થાય છે કે હે પ્રભુ, હકીકતમાં આ પરિસ્થિતિની વિડંબના છે કે મારી આજીવિકા લોકોની માંદગી ઉપર આધાર રાખે છે, છતાં પણ મારું સૌભાગ્ય છે કે તમે મને દર્દીઓના દુઃખ કરવાની ખૂબ જ સારી તક આપી છે, શક્તિ આપી છે, તમે મને જવાબદારી પૂરી કરવાની ક્ષમતા આપી છે. એ પ્રભુ મને એવી શક્તિ આપજે કે જેનાથી હું મારી આ જવાબદારી પૂરી નિષ્ઠાથી નિભાવી શકું. હકીકતમાં તો તમે જ દુઃખ દૂર કરનારા છો અને બધા સુખ આપનારા છો, હું તો એકમાત્ર માધ્યમ છું. હે પ્રભુ, મારા દર્દી ઉપર દયા દ્રષ્ટિભાવ રાખજો. બહુ સરસ એક પ્રાર્થના છે. અને એક બીજી વાત બી તમને કહું કે ટુડે ઇઝ અ ડોક્ટર્સ ડે એન્ડ સેલિબ્રેટેડ ઇન મેમરી ઓફ ડોક્ટર BC રોય. એક સરસ સાયોગિક વસ્તુ થઈ છે અમારા માટે કે અમારા બંને સ્પીકર્સ ડોક્ટર બંકિમ મોદી અને ડોક્ટર ચિરાગભાઈ, એમનું નામ એક B થી ચાલુ થાય છે અને એકનું નામ C થી ચાલુ થાય છે. બંકિમભાઈ મોદી, ડોક્ટર ચિરાગભાઈ, ડોક્ટર મીતિ, Mr. Hiteshbhai and Zydus Vaxicare team for sponsoring this ECME. Thank you very much on behalf of our management medicals. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chirag bhai. Bye. Bye. Bye.